There are thousands of DOS games. Most of them are terrible. I play one selected at random with a 20-minute time limit and record it live. This is the result. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 1000th episode of the Random DOS Game Show. I genuinely didn't know if I'd ever say this. It's a random Sunday afternoon. I've finally found some time to record. And here we go, I guess. Let's just speak. I've got some notes in front of me and I'm just going to play this Get Off My Lawn, the game. I'll give a link in the channel description and you can have a wee look and see yourself at that masterpiece. It's a tower defense game from Skeeto, one of my subscribers. Anyway, 5 years ago, I decided to start a YouTube channel. I didn't know how to use a video editor. I certainly didn't know how to layer images. My sound setup at the time wasn't that great. Get Off My Lawn began with a TIE Fighter review, because yours truly, that would have been good, a TIE Fighter interview. Can you imagine that? What are your thoughts? No! It's the worst TIE Fighter impersonation ever. I'd noticed that certain genres had just disappeared, and they weren't really being covered either by people, and even more disappointingly, the peak period of those genres was like 20 years ago, or, well, as we know, in some cases, even further back. Space combat simulators, RTS games, random old DOS games I enjoyed, and even some Windows titles. Those reviews at the start were me painfully cutting my teeth on how to edit video. I bought a new sound card, initially to record vocals for an album. It wasn't for the channel, and I realised, oh, this condenser mic that I have could do a great job recording my voice for DOS game reviews. And somebody is texting me. Ugh. So yeah, it could do a good job on DOS game reviews. Can you tell this isn't edited down? Between that and working at a local service station, seeing my girlfriend at the weekends, I was starting to come out of a slump because I'd just moved back from England in 2018. But yeah, with 2020 on the horizon, I was planning on playing live with the band, and videos were just a hobby to me, you know. And my relationship was just beginning, you know, and we know what happens next with 2020. I resigned from the job. I was unable to continue physically, you know, and I felt, you know, they offered me money, they paid me while I was off sick, which was nice of them, but I couldn't in good conscience continue. I was quarantined and I was all by myself. There was no family around. I couldn't see anyone or do anything, and I barely had the strength to make it out of bed. Each morning I'd text my mom, let her know, hey, yep, still alive, still here. And yeah, I'd get very drunk very often. I don't drink at all anymore because of that. So yeah. To occupy my time during the sober moments I had, I hauled myself over to my computer chair, and there was this new thing going on called the Exodus Collection, and I'd pick one game at random just to take my mind off things, you know. And then I thought to myself, hey, what if I recorded myself talking about the game, you know, just for my own amusement, sort of a reaction podcast review thingamajig, a hybrid, I guess you'd call it, you know, sort of like Shovelware Diggers. Remember from Chris Asick's Pixel Amusement channel, Shovelware Diggers. That was a good show, I miss it, but focusing more on one game for less than an hour. So I did that, and I thought, hey, this is mildly amusing to me. I'll stick it up on YouTube, why not? So I put up a few haphazard videos, and they started to gain traction. So I set myself a goal. I said to myself, hey, why don't you play 100 of them? And that was quite a goal back then, the idea of doing 100 at... yeah, nowadays it's like, yeah, 100 is a season. And now, back then, it was seen as this sort of impossible idea. And if people were interested in it, you know, after the 100, I'd start making a real effort with them. So apologies to all the DOS games that I played in the first 100 episodes when I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't look up the controls. I didn't read the manual. I didn't do anything like that. Eventually, I decided to change it up a little bit, and I, you know, would read the manual sometimes, and I'd make sure I'd give a good accounting of myself, and I think people prefer that. There'll be some of the early videos you'll watch, and it'll just be like me abandoning the game because I can't get the controls right or the cycle count is too high. So yeah, I played Doom. That was a good game. Really early in the channel's. It's a classic. It's a classic video. I'm not sure I could even watch it anymore. It's a man who thinks he's dying, who decides to play as a Marine who gets sent to hell, and you can actually hear me struggling to breathe as I keep pushing through, and I complete the first episode of Doom inside that hour time limit or so. It's crazy. It's a feat of endurance. It's something else. But anyway, year 2 came along. I revealed my face. Started doing scripted videos on top of the Random DOS Game Show. Had a few long plays, decided they weren't really for me. And I guess I had a few critics as well, you know. They weren't keen on the idea of some guy just releasing 5 or 6 videos a week every week and flooding the YouTubes with DOS stuff. Yeah, but I mean, I guess a lot of people were like, hey, how can you make so much? And I still get asked that these days. How can you make so much? And I mean, at the time I was unemployed, I was completely alone, and for the first few months of the show, I had no guarantees that I'd wake up the following day, you know. But when you have that much time on your hands and things are looking grim, then, well, playing old DOS games becomes an excellent distraction, doesn't it, you know? So a few of the videos went viral, but unfortunately for me, this is a thing that has happened to me over and over and over again. YouTube picks the wrong video to go viral. In this case, it was my Doom videos, and everyone came to my channel being like, "Oh, a new Doom channel," and then they'd see it and they'd be like, "Oh, this is not a new Doom channel." But yeah, after about the first 100 episodes, I started realizing, you know, the realization dawned. There are more old great games than I ever realized, and a huge chunk of them ran on DOS. So I kept going, and I started to take more care, you know, and did a bit of editing and sought advice from fellow YouTubers in my nation. Realized that the biggest people in this genre made less than minimum wage, so I certainly wasn't doing it for the money. Nobody can look back in hindsight and say, that Lawnie one, he was definitely in it for the money. I interacted with some great YouTubers in that time. Like, I spoke to Clint Basinger just the once, just over YouTube comment. I didn't really speak with him, but yeah, I can put that little thing, little pin on my lapel and say, look, I spoke to Clint. Well, hey, spoke to Chris Asic a number of times. He was very useful. Very, very open with people who emailed him with questions or advice or whatever. Very, very honest, down to earth, and would just offer you his thoughts. It was Anatoly Shashkin, of course, and he very, very similar. You know, he'd just come into the comment sections and just give you information, and it was very useful. Jim Leonard was another one. Actually, more recently, Jim's been interacting. He's left some good comments about resolutions and settings and color palettes and so on. Jim's one of those technical guys who knows DOS back and front, up and down, inside out. Check him out on Twitter. He's also got YouTube, actually. But yeah, he's mostly on Twitter these days, I think. Then, of course, there's EXO, who's responsible for the whole Exodus project that I use to play all these DOS games. Vanessa, one of my patrons, they did a terrific Command & Conquer video. DOS Storm, of course, when he was up and coming. I plugged him endlessly and was like, look at DOS Storm. DOS Gamer Man's another one of my patrons, actually. And Gaming Wolf Plays for first-person shooter content. But yeah, there was even a number of people who started their own channels because of me, which I was utterly humbled by. I was just like, what? You're inspired by me? Okay. There's far better people to be inspired by, you know. Then I met streamers like MZZ, who is basically a female Australian version of me. It's like some sort of kind of alternate universe flip of me. We're not the same person. She has a lot of different beliefs and thoughts and opinions, but you know, it's like, hey, there's somebody down under who's doing the same sort of thing that I'm doing, but for Twitch. And her good partner in crime there, Sonneveld, they're not partners, they're good friends, but you know what I mean. He's worked with her, and they did a translation of a Czech game called The Secret of Donkey Island. Check that out. But yeah, there's also hundreds of other people on the channel that come and go as their time allows, you know, professors, doctors, lecturers, industry professionals who work for global corporations. It's all a bit kind of like humbling that these people are giving me their attention, and here I am, an entertainer with, you know, passable knowledge of DOS gaming, coming to the realization that like there's this huge chunk of my small audience that are massively intelligent and wealthy as well. And yeah, actually some of them started paying me money as well to keep going. And I opened a Patreon and threw up the odd exclusive video. Not enough of them, I have to say. I need to do more of them. But I remember them saying to me recently, you know, there'd been a bit of a dry spell, and they said, look, it's not about the exclusives. We're not paying for the exclusives. We're paying in appreciation of you continuing this insanity. You know, they didn't call it insanity. They were much nicer about it. But yeah, it's still a wild concept to me that people are paying me money to play DOS games, you know, but hey. Then there's the developers, people who've contributed to the DOS games in the past, you know, that I've showcased, and they'd show up from time to time in the comments and provide information or behind the scenes knowledge and stuff. Then of course there's Skeeto as well, and his wife, who teamed up and made this game that I feature in, so that's nice. There's two games I feature in now. There's this one and there's the Omnicron Conspiracy remake. Check that out. I did a full Let's Play of that, and it's really enjoyable. Fantastic work. You're waiting for me to name drop you there, aren't you? Well, I'm not gonna. As my channel grew, it became sort of a showcase, as I was saying, and a bit of a clarion call as well, according to my notes that I've got in front of me. There are thousands of DOS games, and you know what? Loads of them are actually quite good. Games like Nebula Fighter and Starcom, the latter of which got a spotlight video that drove the developer to tears. It's the first time I've driven somebody to tears of joy, though, rather than tears of something else. So that was nice. At least I hope it was tears of joy. To date, there's been 120 time-breaking games and 250 in total that have hit my top 25 that I showcase at the end of each season. And you know what? For every 25 that I do, there's another like 10 to 15 that don't end up on these lists. I like lists. And we did a list a while back, me and members of the community, of 1,000 amazing DOS games, just to sort of show people and be like, look, there's so many. Maybe in the future I'll expand beyond DOS, because there are other systems out there with amazing games on them as well that I can emulate or play using the Mister. Since this channel, I mean, technically it's known for the DOS stuff, but it's not exactly a DOS channel. It wasn't in the first place, but all of that's for another time. Speaking of time, no single person has had a bigger influence on my time and energy than my good friend Jason, who goes by the username Angel, a humble and endlessly patient British man who took it upon himself to help improve the TIE Fighter Total Conversion project, insisting in typical fashion that he wasn't the leader, and reiterating to people that it wasn't his original idea, that he wasn't the original developer, before eventually we did the digital equivalent of shaking him and saying, look, you're the project lead, you're in charge. I'd been fiddling around with a sound project to improve the audio of TIE Fighter, and before I knew it, I was doing sound for TFTC and rescoring the entire TIE Fighter soundtrack, mostly out of annoyance. I heard the versions that they were thinking of going for, and I was just like, nope, I'm gonna do this. So I did it. And if you listen very carefully, you'll hear my voice in the reimagined campaign as well. I'm one or two characters in there. Next thing I know, we're one of the top rated mods on the internet. I think we're sitting on 9.8 out of 10 on ModDB and have nearly 100,000 downloads, and we're in PC Gamer. Yeah, I wasn't mentioned by name, but TFTC made it to PC Gamer, so that was something I never thought would happen, which is amazing. Speaking of which, next thing I know, I'm followed by one of the original developers of TIE Fighter, which is absolute madness. Better wrap this up anyway, before this reaches 20 minutes and get off my lawn the game becomes a time breaker, huh? So here we stand at 1,000 episodes, off the back of a series of suspect homemade efforts in a world where seemingly everyone has access to high quality video and audio now. where content is near infinite and attention-seeking behavior is rewarded, where AI is on the verge of destroying what's left of the internet and our legacy is being reframed as, yeah, there were a few good games before Windows came out. Yeah, just a few. Almost everything you experience in modern gaming has come about either indirectly or directly thanks to DOS, and I hope we don't get lumped in the same boat as all the other enthusiasts of the past. I feel for you, Apple II and Spectrum and Commodore fans. But anyway, I've waffled on from the heart long enough, and I thank you for listening to me waffle, whether you've been tuning in for a day or you've been here for years. Your comments and kindness and patience are the reason I've made it this far, and they're also the reason I'm going to continue past the 1,000 mark, deep into the uncharted waters of covering every DOS game ever made over the next 10 to 20 years or so. So, thank you. And as always, until next time.